I hope you're having an amazing day. My name is Colin, and in this video, we're going to have a look on how to make money with crypto launchpads. So over the last couple of years, I have extensively covered the crypto launchpads as I will do today, because things have changed a little bit, things you need to keep into consideration. So we're going to go to CoinMarketCap, go to the category section, look for the actual launch pads, and then I will give you some actual real life examples. Nothing is better, in my opinion, than looking at things that are actually relevant, live, and you can follow step by step. To make it easier, I'm just going to go like this and type launchpad. So this is the Binance launchpad. This is specific for what these launchpads have launched. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for an overview of all the launchpads: AI agent launchpad, TokenFi launchpad, more categories. Okay, so here we have Communitas, TrustSwap, but they used to have a specific category for all the launchpads. I don't think they have it anymore, as you can see. Okay, but we know kind of the different launchpads, right? So let's do the Communitas launchpad, tier 2 launchpad, into the tier 3 section. So we're going to open that just because I want to go to their website. Okay, so that's not working like that, but I know they have a token as well. So like that. So you can see the FDV on the token is 2 million. So it's definitely a tier 3 launchpad. But we're going to look at what they actually are raising, because that is basically what we're here to find out, what it is that we're actually looking for. And in order to be able to do that, okay, so they changed their flow a little bit. Okay, here we go. They have a voting system at the moment, stake. So 8x capital, target raise 250K, IMC 1 million, 20% TGs. Okay, so here, this is exactly what I want to discuss. So this is a good example. Here you see vesting terms. Do they actually show? They show an initial market cap. So this one is quite high, 10 million. And these are the metrics that we need, but they don't show a fully diluted valuation, but they do show the total supply and then the price. So we can calculate the FDV from there. This is on Solana. Okay, so here we have the Communitas launchpad. Another launchpad, like for example, I don't know if DAOmaker is still doing any raises. 34 million FDV, quite high on their own token. Let's have a look. So they have different formats here: launchpad, airdrops, farms, vault, staking. Website is a little bit slow, it appears. Let me see if I can refresh it. In the meantime, let's look for a third one, something a little bit higher preferably. Let's do a Seedify, right? I know they have done some weird style launches, but it will be the perfect example to actually clarify what it is that I'm looking for, right? So that's loading. DAOmaker, somewhat loading. I'll just race to the launchpad section straight away, let that load. It might be my computer, because Seedify is also having to verify if I'm a bot actually, but here we go. So we're going to go to Ideal Launchpad to be able to get an overview of the races that they're doing. Ideal Launchpad Home, to see what's upcoming. Okay, DAOmaker, here we go. So this is basically what they have done. Of course, they're showing project here with the all-time highs, but this is all 2021 stuff. How do we get an overview of what is currently open? I don't think they have it here. Okay, so the upcoming pools, they have Agent XYZ, 425K raise, initial market cap 300K, nothing too significant on AVAX. So this is the only one that they have. Now, this is what I want to talk about, right? What is interesting, what is not interesting? You have to look at the vesting initially. We are currently in a market where I can go to CoinMarketCap and show you a dozen tokens right now that have launched lately that didn't do well, right? So here we have one of them, right, which is like more a Web 2 platform. Then we got Revolve Games. You can see how that went. there's a large variety of products that was basically raised on and that didn't do well overall, right? But also big projects like Treefers, or it was like Cloud, I think, the Cloud token, right? So you can see big dump, 72% down. So the question is why? The answer to that is there is very little secondary market liquidity. So what that means is when tokens TGE, the first thing people are looking to do is to dump their tokens. That isn't necessarily an issue if there's actually people that are buying the tokens, which apparently in this example is not applicable. So when you have terms like 20% TGE, 1 month cliff, 4 months linear, it will take you a total of 6 months to get all your tokens. The first TGE, 1 month cliff, and then 4, this is 5, and the first month is the TGE 6. This one is 20% TGE, 5 month linear unlock, 6 months. 40% TGE, 3 month cliff, 24 months linear fast thereafter. This is going to get you absolutely annihilated. You need to make all your money back on the first 40%, right? This is a massive gamble with the amount of time you need to wait. Now, the initial market cap at 10 million, really high. I don't know much about the project or what it's supposed to do. Nothing, basically. I'm just judging it based on the numbers. Here you see initial market cap really low, 160K, 1.3 million, which is still reasonable. 160K is extremely low, right? That says something. It's not necessarily a good thing that it's so low. It is not necessarily a good thing that it's so high, right? However, we have to look at the fully diluted valuation. That is important. So what are they ranking this project on? So it is basically 10 billion tokens, and we're going to do that times a price of this, and that gives us this much. Easier. Okay, 26,250,000. So 26.5 mil FDV. On a 26.5 million FDV, if that's correct, 10 million initial market cap is 50% float. And that has to do obviously with the 40% TGE. How much would they raise here? 200K. So they must raise on other launchpads as well in order to make such a high float. If it's indeed 50% float, meaning that 50% of all these tokens would be in circulation, because 26 mil valuation and 10 mil, it's almost half, right? Now, remember what I said, in this market, there's barely any secondary market liquidity, meaning that it's extremely likely that this token will dump, right? Just because it doesn't matter how good the project is, the tokens are not locked up, right? You can kind of guarantee a good token price if you just cliff all the investors. Nobody can sell, which the only way if there's buyers is up, right? Inevitably, because you took people's money, you have to give them tokens, which creates sell pressure. Now, if you look at something like, well, Downmaker is a shit example, apparently. Let's go back one more. So here, you have a 50% TGE and then another one-time vesting. Yeah, initial market cap is only 300K, and the target raise at CDFI is 125K. So 125K, of which 50% is TGE, 75K sell pressure, and the market cap is relatively low. Okay, pretty dangerous, right? Because the market cap is so low. Now it says target raise at CDFI, so that is assuming that they're doing also a raise somewhere else. Registration is basically open, it's starting. Not my favorite type of launch, right? Here you have 20% TGE, a 1 month cliff, and then 4 months linear. If the target raise is 150K in the initial market cap, so this looks a lot better just from a numbers point of view, right? I'm not reviewing the project here. I'm not looking at the specific criteria. All I'm looking for is to get the point across of what to look for and what not to look for in terms of what might get you better terms. Less risk, more opportunity, right? So 20% TGE, 1 month cliff, 4 months linear. Although the numbers are low, right? Target raise is low, initial market cap is low, which is a good thing. With 20% TGE, it also means that this will not get a significant centralized exchange because they're only raising 150K for the entire project, which then, in my opinion, makes no sense. So this is where we get to the main point. Appetite, preference, right? I might be able to, if I can pull up a sketch pad to give you a proper illustration of what I mean with that. Right? Oh, I think I always use this one. Let's see. Yeah, this is the one that I always use. So let me show you a new one. Yeah, I will just grab a white overview. Okay, so basically, you know, on these launches, if the demand for these launches is high, they can raise big money. Right? If they can raise big money, usually you have a higher FDV, fully diluted valuation, so what they think the project is worth. Now, if they can raise money because demand is there, usually the launches, they will go well, right? But now you're seeing raises between, let's say, 50, right, and about 100. So if you see raises to 50 to 100, this is a signal that basically is the liquidity there? Can they even fill these pools, right? Now, depending on what the FDV looks like, so FDV basically comes down here, most often time we see the pattern of launches of moving down because there's too much sell pressure. Now, how does this work? Yeah, why is that the case? I am an investor, so I start here. Project is here. They're going to come to me and say, hey, do you want to invest in my project? And I'm like, well, market is not really doing that well. Probably not, question mark, or I'm going to tell them no. Okay, so they go from me to then the next investor, right? He's going to tell them no, right? And they're going to say, hey, I'm going to give you 100 mil valuation. I'm just going to put in some crazy numbers, yeah, and 10% TGE, yeah, 10%. So I said no, the other guy said no, and this guy says no. They're like, fuck, right? We don't have that big of an audience. What we gonna do, right? Okay, so they say, hey, you know what, guys? We're going to do 50 million, yeah, and 20% TGE, yeah. Okay, I say no. This guy also says no, but this guy says yes. And that's basically how it starts. So it is a matter of supply and demand. What the project thinks that project is worth to what the investors think they're worth is very different, right? Now, obviously, we have to look at the rounds, right? What are the rounds made up of? Seed round or pre-seed even, seed round, strategic, private, public. You are at the Launchpads here. So all these rounds, all the negotiating on the terms and everything has been done 4 times at least before you. So when you're on a Launchpad, you have nothing to negotiate on. Everything is set, but nothing that you control, right? You come in at the highest valuation and therefore you have the best unlock terms, right? Which basically are here. So the best unlock terms, the highest valuation. You get the highest valuation because you don't have to wait for the token generation event like all these people did. However, on the unlocks, it is the most aggressive because you paid the highest price. You have the least amount of potential upside. All these rounds here before you had a lower valuation, right? Now, again, it all circles back to secondary market liquidity, meaning liquid markets, right? When tokens are live and launched, do they perform well? Do they perform well? And the answer at the moment is they don't. We need to track a couple of these launches, right? So we might as well track this one, and this one. When they go live, this one is in the voting stage, a funding stage. On CDFI, the one we looked at, it's basically starting in a day, right? We need to look at these tokens and when they go live, what the performance is. Now, it is very important. People ask me, Colin, do you still participate in IDOs? And my answer is no, because my situation has changed. $100, $1,000, right? To basically spend time participating in the IDO, doing the research. $100 over a month is not a good investment of my time. I need like thousands. And then launchpads for me are not the best opportunity. This doesn't mean that for you it might not be the best opportunity. If you are working with the budget and you're trying to make, $10, $50, $100, $200, then launchpads are a great opportunity because you might not be able to get other opportunities. And this is very important. So if that's the case, then launchpads, they work just fine. The most important thing is take into consideration the vesting, take into consideration the valuations, take into consideration secondary market performance. During bear markets, launchpads don't do well, right? If there's no money, you can get a lot of allocation, which means you can get a lot of dollars worth, right? But if the token goes down, it's useless. In a bear market, in a bull market, you can get very little allocation. The launchpad is doing really well. Every week there's launches and you can only do $5 allocation. Why? Because everything makes money, right? Now, in either way, in scenario 1 or scenario 2, the launchpad charges a fee to do the raise because they're a business and they don't care if the launch goes well, the launch doesn't go well. As a business, as a real business with longevity, of course they care, because the more successful launches they have, the more people participate on the launches, the more projects want to launch with them, the more money that they make, right? So there's double longevity if it goes well. However, you see now small raises in CDFI. In the bull market 21, they did $1 million a raise. Now they're doing 125K as being the biggest, if not one of the biggest launchpads in the game. And then doing basically one raise every 2 weeks or one raise a month. I'm not too sure, but it's definitely not one raise every other day, right? Which in the bull market 21, we saw often. These days are gone. These days will come again when the market appetite increases. So here we have basically an all season indicator. We all know the fear and greed index because we have looked at it many, many times on this channel. But on the altcoin index, we basically see where a potential alt season might take place. Alt season is definitely required for a good performance on the IDO launchpads, right? And you have some other indicators here which you might want to consider having a look at. So in conclusion to this video, valuations, vesting is extremely important when you're analyzing projects, but that hasn't changed. What has changed is secondary market liquidity, how tokens perform in general and how they work with the setup of sell pressure. So this is where you analyze and where you can take your advantage if you educate yourself enough. This is a complex topic. I might make more videos on this. And if you're looking for that, please let me know in the description down below what exactly your questions are, and I'll make sure to try cover as best as possible. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.